When we were first created in 1944, Jewish communities had very little influence in the United States. They had no convening body, no unified voice or political power. In response to rampant anti-Semitism and the failure to prevent the Holocaust, Jewish organizations came together to form the National Community Relations Advisory Council, later known as JCPA. Charged with safeguarding Jews and promoting a just and pluralistic society by coordinating and building consensus across the Jewish community, actively engaging in American public life, and working in common cause with diverse communities. JCPA's immigration work began in 1946 with the fight to repeal the racist national origins quotas, which kept out many Jews and other undesirables. JCPA organized a coalition that built up public support until it successfully secured the repeal of the quota system in the landmark Immigration and Nationality Act. By 1950, JCPA was already deeply involved in the fight against racial discrimination and segregation. Convinced that the struggle for civil rights could only be won through coalition, A. Philip Randolph, Arnie Arnson, and Roy Wilkins co-founded the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights as a coordinating body for all civil rights lobbying, modeled after JCPA, which also housed and staffed the Leadership Conference in its early years, including as an organizer of the historic March on Washington. JCPA took to the halls of Congress to fight for and win critical civil rights victories like the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968. With many of these key legislative and legal battles won, JCPA shifted its focus to working on healthcare, nutrition, economics, and human rights. JCPA has always been a leader in advocating for Israel, working to advance the peace process.
The principal architect of the current peace process, the Honorable Shimon Peres.
Convening high-level talks with diplomats, building interfaith support, understanding, and to fight delegitimization. Over the decades, JCPA has been at the forefront of progress in the United States. The causes that we fight for today are the same as they were back then.
1 out of every 3 black men you see have a criminal record. 1 out of every 6 Latino men have a criminal record. That is something that is a public health crisis, and my organization, the Jewish Council of Public Affairs, is now involved with this work because this is the Jewish community's re-engagement with the modern-day civil rights movement, which is to end mass incarceration.
They tell me this wasn't politically motivated, but an opportunity to see what's happening firsthand. The group spent time touring local shelters, both on the U.S. and Mexico side. They talked with Border Patrol agents, humanitarian groups, and visited the Mexican consulate to learn the facts.
Today, JCPA brings together 16 national agencies and 125 JCRCs to find common ground, build consensus, and mobilize on critical issues facing our nation like white supremacy, anti-Semitism, advocating for Israel, racial justice, poverty, religious liberty, civil and human rights, immigration, and criminal justice reform. We built Jewish unity around a bold policy agenda, amplifying the Jewish voice, working in common cause with other racial, ethnic, and faith groups, and multiplying our collective influence. We are JCPA.
Welcome back to JCPA 2021 conference. We had a great day yesterday that was insightful, educational, and inspirational. Today, we will continue our dynamic programming, beginning with the presentation of the Chernin Award. This segment will conclude with a Dvar Torah from Rena Devora Winnick, who is a graduate student at Turo College at the Lander College for Women. Each year, a student is selected to speak at the JCPA conference, and we are grateful that this is a repeat performance for her. After Rena, we will hear from Dr. Rachel Levine from the Biden administration. She is the newly appointed Assistant Secretary for Health in the Department of Health and Human Services. The vote is a history-making one. Levine is the first openly transgender federal official to be confirmed by the Senate. We are so grateful that she took time out of her busy schedule to be with us today. To begin the presentation of the award, I would like to introduce Karen Kasner, a JCPA board member from New York. Karen, take it away.
Thank you, Harold. Today we have the great pleasure to introduce the Albert D. Chernin Award to Senate Majority Leader Charles Chuck Schumer from my home state of New York. This award is presented each year to an American Jew whose life best exemplifies the social justice imperatives of Judaism, Jewish history, and the protection of the Bill of Rights, particularly the First Amendment. This award celebrates the achievements of its recipient, whose ideals symbolize the principles embodied by the work of JCPA. This award is named after Albert Chernin, Executive Vice Chair of the National Jewish Community Relations Advisory Council, now known as the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, from 1975 to 1990. Chernin's leadership created a far-reaching impact on American policy in the areas of church, state, civil rights, immigration, Israel, and Soviet Jewry. It now gives me great pleasure to begin the Chernin Award ceremony for Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
Here I am, Majority Leader of the United States Senate and the highest ranking Jewish elected official in America ever. It's an awesome responsibility. Awesome in the sense that when the angels see the face of God, they tremble in awe. And I realize that the tremendous responsibility is so important at this time in America. It's also a lesson of how America has been so good to the Jewish people. We have found acceptance and prosperity in this country like none other in history. And that is a tribute to the hard work, character, and Torah values of the Jewish people. But it's also a great tribute to this great country, which tells people that no matter who you are, where you come from, we welcome you to build a good life and even prosperity for yourself.
I need to catch my breath, so much is happening.
My father was an exterminator, never made much money. I went to James Madison High School, working class high school in Brooklyn, New York. But from there, I was lucky enough to get into Harvard. At Harvard, which was then 75 prep school people, not many people like me, I thought, how am I going to make it at this place? And I thought I'd play basketball. But the coach, after not even watching me touch a basketball, said, go home. He was having no 6'1" forwards. And so that night I was distraught. I even wrote my mom a note saying I told her I should have left Harvard and come back to Brooklyn College where I belonged, when beshert. It's fate, God's hand. Someone knocks on my door and says, how would you like to join the Harvard Young Democrats who are working for a man named Eugene McCarthy, who was opposing Lyndon Johnson in the Vietnam War? And so I volunteered. He didn't win, but he's so close that Lyndon Johnson, the most powerful man in the world, said, I'm not going to run again. And I said, this is what I would devote my life to. And the rest, well, you know the story.
We want to welcome our guest today, Senator Chuck Schumer from New York. He has been an advocate for women's rights, a leader in the fight against AIDS, a staunch ally of Israel. As a legislator, he wrote the Brady Bill, co-wrote the legislation to ban assault weapons. He was the sponsor of the landmark Violence Against Women's Act, which was the first federal legislation to protect women against domestic violence. He helped create the Victims' Compensation Fund, helping families of those that lost their lives on 9/11. Over his political career, he's tackled issues as broad-ranging as the Empire State he represents. That his opponents have invented a new word to describe him and his tactics: Schumerism.
Today is the day to stand up and say enough to the boundless fever for handguns, enough to the senseless killing in every community. The people of America know that there are no magic pills to end violence, and they want the simple, common-sense restraint of the Brady Bill.
We are here to announce that 8 senators from opposite sides of the political aisle are coming together on a common-sense immigration reform proposal that we believe can pass the Senate. Help is on the way. This is a wonderful day for America. This is the most significant piece of legislation in so many ways in decades. It will always be wrong to use anti-Semitism as a political weapon, always. And let me tell you, if you only care about anti-Semitism coming from your political opponents, you are not fully committed to fighting anti-Semitism. And to my Republican colleagues, when and where we can, the Democratic majority will strive to make this important work bipartisan. The Senate works best when we work together. So let us begin. I yield the floor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Alan Kadesh, president of the Turo College and University System. Turo is proud to have partnered with the Jcpa for several decades. I'm particularly delighted that we have the honor of joining in this deeply deserved tribute to a devoted public servant who happens also to be an honorary alumnus of Turo College, having received an honorary Doctor of Laws degree from Turo in May 1999. Senator Schumer, it's my pleasure to present you with the Jewish Council of Public Affairs coveted Albert D. Chernin Award. Your commitment to public service and your exemplary focus on creating a public good that makes America and the world a better place for all people makes you a most appropriate choice for this distinguished honor. While we are quite proud that you have achieved the highest position in the U.S. Senate of any Jew in American history, that's not why you were selected. Rather, this honor reflects our appreciation for your nearly half-century of devoted service as an elected public official, championing values and policies that are dear to the Jewish community relations field, including vigorous efforts to build a just and pluralistic America and to ensure the safety and security of the State of Israel. The issues that you have championed, including freedom of religion, combating racism and anti-Semitism, fighting for gun safety, ending violence against women, and comprehensive immigration reform, are of great importance to the entire Jewish community. Your ability to build bridges and drive consensus across the political spectrum and among diverse communities is exemplary. We must also publicly thank you for your non-wavering leadership during the past year of COVID-19. You have stood strong to ensure the health and stability of all people in our country. You reminded us that the pandemic not only hurts our economy, but impacts each and every one of us. We thank you for your leadership and for all you have accomplished, not only assisting the Jewish community, but for all the diverse peoples that make up this wonderful country. Thank you again, and congratulations, Senator Schumer.
Hi, everyone. This is Senator Chuck Schumer, and I want to thank you to everyone at the Jewish Council for Public Affairs. Thank you to Board Chair Michael Fromm and to fellow New Yorkers and immediate past Chair Cheryl Fishbein and Vice Chair Karen Kasner. And I have a special shout out to the great JCRC New York for all of the amazing work it does, especially over this past year, which has been so difficult. JCRC has been a treasured partner of mine throughout my career and a resource to the entire New York congressional delegation. And I'm honored to follow in the footsteps of so many great Jewish Americans, like the great recently departed Justice Ginsburg, in receiving the Albert D. Chernin Award. Like all of you, I'm aware of just how unlikely my story is. As a boy, I grew up hearing about my great-grandmother. When the Nazis invaded Ukraine in 1941, then part of Galicia, they asked her to gather her entire family on her porch. Over 30 people gathered from 85 to 3 months. The Nazis said, "You're coming with us." She said, "We're not moving," and they machine gunned all of them down. It was by fleeing to America that the rest of my family had escaped the death and persecution that fell to my great-grandmother and her family. And here in America, we were able to build a better life, generation by generation, until one day, the great-grandson of that woman who was gunned down by the Nazis on the porch to become the majority leader of the United States of America, the highest-ranking Jewish elected official ever in this country. Only in America is that story even possible. So I'm acutely aware of our responsibility as elected leaders and as citizens, regardless of our station, to uphold the values of tolerance, openness, and social justice. Those are the values that are woven into the fabric of Jewish teaching. It's everything this award and JCPA represents. Those same values are woven into the fabric of America. And in our times, we have a lot of work left to do to make those principles real in our world. Sadly, the age-old poisons of racism and bigotry persist. When the horrible, horrible insurrectionists invaded the Capitol, I was told they were looking for the big Jew. That was me. Hate crimes and anti-Semitism, again, sadly, are on the rise. The country continues to grapple with generations-long struggle for racial justice and equality. Inequalities of wealth and income gnaw at the foundation of our society, and climate change is an existential threat to our planet. These are the challenges of our time, and like generations before us, we must faithfully engage in the work of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. As Senate Majority Leader, I promise you I'll work with President Biden, with Congress, and with all of you to promote policies that will lay a foundation for a fairer, more tolerant, and even more prosperous country. We will work to strengthen our democratic institutions and fight voter suppression. We'll work to right the deep wrongs in our criminal justice system. We'll work to protect our children and our communities with common sense gun safety legislation, which, as the original sponsor of the Brady Bill, is so important to me. And we will work to see that the poor and the middle class are able to advance. Right now, they worry about their future. And of course, we will continue to advocate for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. These are the many building blocks we need to lay a foundation for a safer, more secure world for all people. They are the things we must come together around as we keep engaging in Tikkun Olam. So again, I am so honored to accept the Chernin Award with gratitude and with a commitment that we'll keep going, keep striving, keep fighting for our values, justice, tolerance, equality, everything this board represents. So thank you so much, and may all of you be healthy and be safe.
I want to start off by thanking Dr. Lukens, Turo College, and JCPA for inviting me to attend the conference this year and allowing me to share some thoughts with you. This is my 4th year of having the opportunity to be a part of this conference, and since I first began attending in my junior year of college, I have continuously been inspired by the work of JCPA, the passion for justice of all of the participants, and the important discussions and perspectives highlighted by JCPA. As a graduate of Lander College for Women, the vision and legacy of Dr. Lander as the founder of Turo College and a founding member of JCPA has served as a guiding light for me as I navigate the challenge of integrating my identity as a woman, as an active member of the Jewish community, and as an American dedicated to effecting positive change in my community. As I have moved through the beginning stages of my career, I often find myself turning to a statement made by Mordecai in the book of Esther, as he implores Esther to use the powerful position she finds herself in to take action to save the lives of the Jewish community in ancient Persia. He tells her, "Umi yodea im le'es kazos higia lamalchus," and who knows whether for such a time as this you have come to the kingdom. Equipped with a bachelor's degree in political science from Turo College, the invaluable support of Dr. Lukens and Dean Stoltz-Loike, and a JD from Georgetown University Law Center, which I will be receiving in just a few weeks, I have been fortunate to find myself not as the queen of a vast empire, but in positions and situations where my work can make a small but important impact on the world around me. I recently had the opportunity to speak to Judge Philip Hubbard, a former Florida 3rd District Court of Appeals judge, about my grandfather, Jack Winnick of blessed memory. During his time as an Army JAG officer, my grandfather played a central role in bringing to light the case of Freddie Pitts and Wilbert Lee, who spent 12 years on death row after being beaten by police until they confessed to a murder they did not commit. Remembering my grandfather, Judge Hubbard wrote, "He was a modest man with a deep sense of justice based on his religious training." This simple but profound statement perfectly encapsulates the life, work, and heart of my grandfather and is the high bar he has left for me to strive towards with my work. My deeply rooted sense of justice was passed down to me through both my family and my faith, and has shaped the work I have done over the last 3 years in law school. I have worked on issues of women's human rights in Malawi. I externed at the Innocence Project, working on cases of wrongful conviction, and I am currently working on post-conviction legal advocacy efforts on behalf of death row inmates in Florida. My grandfather displayed a deep love and appreciation for the United States, and its great potential is what caused him to care so deeply about the problems and challenges we face. I've had the great privilege of spending the last year interning at the United States Secret Service, where I've learned the true meaning of the words of President Ronald Reagan when he stated, "Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people." As I prepare to commission in a couple months as a judge advocate in the United States Air Force, I hope to use my position to ensure that in our efforts to protect our national security, we uphold the values upon which we were founded, the values we have taken upon ourselves over the last 2 centuries, and that we strive to continue to hold ourselves to the highest of moral standards. I have come to learn that, as Mordecai so eloquently explained to Esther, with great opportunity comes even greater responsibility. This principle is embodied by Senate Majority Leader Senator Schumer in his work as Washington's highest-ranking Jewish official. It was embodied by Dr. Lander through his work and commitment to education and public policy. It was embodied by my grandfather in his commitment to make the country he lived in a better place. And it is embodied by JCPA in your efforts to educate, advocate, and mobilize the greater Jewish community on issues of justice and pluralism in the United States, peace and security in Israel, and human rights around the world. I hope that as I progress through my career, I never forget this message, and I know that as long as I can convince Dr. Lukens to continue inviting me back to more JCPA conferences, I will never forget the responsibility I have to use the positions I find myself in to make the world around me a better place.